We have textbook definitions, we have practical definitions. And you yourself, as you work your way into property management, would have a very simple line definition as to what exactly property management is. So Ariella was right. It's basically managing property for a third party. So for example, Evans owns this building. And he's like, somebody keeps calling me that they need their AC serviced. They need their tap fixed. Oh, what's happening to the lawn? Who's taking care of that? I can't be bothered. Somebody, please come and do something. Okay, so that is what property management is all about. Ensuring that properties are maintained to perfection. No one is maintaining the property means that when you walk into the property, there's some wire hanging, you go to the bathroom, there's a problem, no one is fixing the tap, no one is taking absolutely control of anything because there's no manager. So that's what we're talking about. And we're talking about specifically property. So this is real estate. We're not managing finances as only money. We're not managing clothes. We're not managing somebody's a wardrobe or business. We're managing property. It's real estate. So that is what property. So property management, three different. Property management is the operation, control, and oversight of real estate as used in its broad terms. Because of course we know real estate can be land, property, and all that. So management indicates a need to be cared for, monitored, and accountability. Okay, still jumping.
Yes.
Where's the saying you can still get
Okay.
Second definition. Oh gosh. Is the administration of residential, commercial, and industrial real estate. So that includes apartments, it can be a warehouse, any type of property, commercial property or residential property that you're managing. I like the third one, actually I got that from Natasha's slides. Property management is the art and science of managing three primary resources. So we have property, we have people, and I'm sure we like the third one, money. It is both an art and a science that requires extensive knowledge, skills, and efficient systems. That is the underlying principle. Systems. Efficient, effective systems. We all manage different things in our different areas of life. But if you don't have structure, if you don't have a plan, if you don't know what you're doing from 1 to 2, A to B, it's all over the place. So that is why we need to learn the efficient systems in property management. So in that definition somewhere was something about residential and commercial. Residential, you have homes, and I hear from Natasha's words, you have different terminologies in the States. You say multi-family homes, you have HOA. Please, ask Ghanaians, don't worry. This is basically it. So the residential properties are apartments. Some call them flats, okay? And then we have the condos, so almost the same. And the multi-family units they are mentioning is just like a block of apartments owned by different people. So for example, Mr. James owns one, Cameron owns one, she owns one, but it's all in the same block of units, okay? And then the commercial, so those are examples. So I guess people can see this is the larger. And then this should be the optimum, I think, office space.
Sorry.
And then we have, townhomes, okay? So these are like semi-detached. Mohammed, that's what you call them, right? So semi-detached properties. And then we have stand-alone homes. That's what we call the single unit or family homes. That's what you call them?
Single family homes.
Single family homes, okay? So we call them stand-alone homes. Or we also call them self-compound. That's another term that we local agents say, self-compound. So Ariella, these terms are important as well because you have people who are used to our terms who would call you and say, hello, please, I want a self-compound to rent. And be like, excuse me? You know, okay, I have a self-compound, can you come and manage it? It's just a standalone unit. It can be a very spacious 1-acre property with a pool, with a gym and everything. That's a standalone, that's a self-compound, that's what they're saying. Okay, so we can move on, please. So now, this was important to me Because in Ghana, we say a lot about facility management. We have a lot of companies that say, oh, I'm in facility. They don't really talk about property management, if you realize this. So now what is the difference between facility management and property management? Because when I first spoke to Natasha, she said, in the States, it's like facilities like hospitals. Is that it, Cameron? You have that opinion? Hospital, janitors and all that. So this is what I'm saying. Generally speaking, as we have said, property management involves caring for the building for the sake of the building and its owner. Because we've established that you're taking care of the property for the landlord, for a third party, right? It includes collecting rent on behalf of the landlord, keeping the building maintained to ensure it retains its value, addressing the concerns and queries of the landlord or investors, and it ensures the building is safe, accommodational, and functional. Now, facility management, on the other hand, takes care of the building for the sake of the workspace people. This may sound contradictory, but because they have different duties, that's why we specify what we're saying here. The facility manager, if he walks into this space, would think about a few different things than what a property manager would think about. So a facility manager would walk in and think like, you guys, are you utilizing this space very well? What do I need to make this space more functional for you? Okay, your IT staff, where are you seated? Accounting people, you need what? Okay, so that's what the facilities people do. The property managers will be like, okay, there's water leaking. Have you guys serviced the AC? So these are duties that we will talk about, but we just wanted you to get the foundation because especially here, like I said, we speak about facility management more, okay? But there's not too much, so don't bother too much about it. Next slide, yes, please. So the common ground, I read this from Steve. He said, listen, strength lies in differences and not in similarities. Well, in real estate in particular, we'll go a step further to say we must value the differences and also be aware of similarities and learn from one another to excel. We will also learn that property management is a multidisciplinary, okay, it's very multidisciplinary. So you can be an engineer, you can be a plumber, okay, and then you're a property manager, or whatever you are would come into play in property management, okay? On a personal level, facility managers, facility managers manage ever-growing number of services wherever they are. Okay, so we've got that going. Let's go. We need to get into it now. So I got this. We said, who is a property manager? A person charged with the care of real estate property. And then it says, see also warden, shrink, concierge. It's supposed to be a funny thing, but it's very, very, very true. As you will learn, a property manager takes care of a lot of things, and they're saying they're similar to a prison warden or a psychological shrink because you take care of different aspects of things. Let's go on, you understand better. So it's still jumping? Okay. Thank you. So now, roles and responsibilities of a property manager. Like I said from the start, we're here to learn systems. What do we do when we start? Oriana, so your property, you have people under you, right? Staff, you have a maintenance team and all that. You have to know how to manage them. Isn't that it? What do you do every day when you get there to the property? How do you apportion the duties?
Well, when I first began, I started just almost like building forms or systems or just things for the people, for instance, like maybe like the security officer on the post or the cleaner. So, basically just like building what it is that
that's great. That's what I want to hear. So she had a plan. She had a management plan. She had a system. It may not be, structured, but at least you knew that security had their job to do. You know that cleaners have what to do. You know that the gardener has to be there to make sure that the lawn and everything is kept clean. So there must be a management plan. Okay, so now, when everything like that, you have everything in the back of your mind. We will go into details, especially Natasha will give us best practices about how to get some of these things done. So I'm just touching on them to give you the fundamentals, okay? Now, and that includes marketing of the property and the rentals.
Yes, my duty is to tell you what the laws governing the rental industry in the country. Currently, we are using two laws to govern the rental industry. That's the Act 220, and the PNDC Law 138. These are the current laws that we are using to govern the rental industries. There are actually 8 parts in the Rent Act. That is the 1963. There are 220. So we'll skip 2 of them. The part 2 basically is about the functions of the rent officer. And the part 3 is about the functions of the magistrate. Those may not be relevant in this aspect, but we will talk briefly about them. So first we'll look at the application of the laws or the application of the act. Which part of the industry that this act applies to. And then we'll look at assessment of recoverable rent. That is the rent that you put on your properties. We'll also look at the process you have to follow when it comes to eviction or recovery of possession. If a tenant is owing you, do you go and then collect his belongings and throw them away? No. There is a process you have to follow. Then we look at the obligations of landlords and tenants. You have your rights and responsibilities as a landlord. The tenant also has his or her right and responsibilities. We'll briefly look at some offenses under the Act, and then some miscellaneous items or things. Okay. So first of all, the application of the Act, our mandate is not on government properties, but private owned properties that are being rented out. So when we talk about government properties, we talk about the bungalows, the district assembly markets and those things. Those are government properties. So we don't dwell into that. Government administer on those things. But when it comes to private owned properties which have been rented out, if you own your own property and you are dwelling in personally, or you're giving it to your family without any rental agreement, the law does not apply to you. It's only when you rent those property out that's where the application comes in. So just as you said, as we have it, the Act shall not be applied to any premises of which the public officer is a tenant and the government is a landlord. So if the government is a landlord and he has even rented it to a private person, the law does not apply to that particular person. And then the Act shall apply to private, just as I've mentioned, private rental housing premises in Ghana. We don't have jurisdiction outside Ghana. Okay. So this aspect, is it from section 10 to section 16, talks about assessment. Somebody will ask, why have I built my own property? I've sweat and I've bought my land, and then you come and determine or tell me why I should put this cap on it as rent. It's very important because now you are putting your property on a commercial platform. I want to repeat again that you build the premises and give it to your family member or you dwell in personally. Nobody bothers how much you administer your property. But now you are putting it on a commercial platform where there should be a fair determination of how much the person is to pay. I know a lot of you will disagree with me, but this is the law. I'm just telling you what the law is. Just as Regina said, until you get to the court, you may not know what you are doing wrong. Okay? So the first issue is that when it comes to my that I want to rent this property out, you have to attach yourself or do this application. You have to apply to the magistrate, that is the judge, or rent control department. There are ingredients or there are factors that come into play to determine this recoverable rent, as we call it. It's the same as the rent, but the recoverable there is to mean that you can recover this frequently, either monthly, 6-month caps, or weekly, or that's why we have this recoverable. So the first thing you have to do is to apply for this recoverable rent, where we'll come and assess the place, and then together with you, look at the materials you've used, look at the fittings, look at the environment that you've sited your property, even the land, the value of the land is taken into consideration. So it's not a matter of we are cheating, because if you compare East Legon to a suburb of Teshin or somewhere, because and we've put in on the same structure, you not expect that the value or the recoverable rent will be the same at both ends. Even the value of the land itself will make a difference. So it's very important that we will start thinking about this application of recoverable rent. Just as I said, there are ingredients that I've mentioned some few. Even the property rate you pay annually is taken into consideration. And any other rate, what is also important is the dislodgement of the toilet, this thing. It's also factored in, so that when the tenant pays its rent monthly, it will not be that when he's vacating, now before you call him that the manhole is full, you have to come and pay this. It's factored into the rent. So as the tenant pays the rent, he's also paying so that if anything happens and he has to terminate the tenancy agreement, he has already paid for that. Then we don't need to call the person back and then ask him to pay. So those are the matters to take into consideration when determining the recoverable rent. And what is also important is when the recoverable rent has been determined, within the period, if the tenancy has not expired, and you want to effect this recoverable rent, the law says that you have to give a 1-month clear notice to the person. So if it's done this February, March will pass, 1 month clear, so that in April, so the tenant will also start preparing that, no, from April going, I'm going to pay a new rent. Not that you sit in your corner, you just decide that, no, because iron rod price has gone up, cement price has gone up, even the value of the land on which my property is sited has gone up. So I'm increasing the rent, and then next week, you have to start paying. It's a fair deal. We have to make sure the tenant also prepares and then start paying those things. So that's the date there. Anytime an assessment is done, the tenant is given a clear 1 month notice before it comes into effect. Now we go into the recovery of possession. I'm making it brief. I know there will be a lot of questions. I've been given only 30 minutes. I've factored in your questions and answers into the 30 minutes. So that's why I'm going this direction. So this is the recoverable of possession and then the ejectment. Okay? Just as I mentioned, if the tenant defaults, do you have to go and collect his belongings and throw them away? Do you have to call police to come and block access to the building or access to the room? There are processes you have to follow. And if you look in the Act, under Section 17, which talks about recovery of possession and ejectment, the first offense that a tenant can do that will warrant his eviction is when the person is owing you a month's rent. Okay, you've decided that you pay 6 months block or monthly. He has paid the first 6 months. The second 6 months, 1 month has elapsed. We've entered into a second month without him or she coming to tell you that because of this and this, I'm not able to pay. There should be that agreement. If nothing comes, then you have the right to apply for the order of eviction. I'm doing this. I know most of you are acting on behalf of a lot of landlords. But when the grievance appear, it will be between the tenant and the landlord, of which you will be a representative. The issue there is, if that 1 month elapsed and the person has not come to discuss with you, then you have the right to apply for the order of eviction for us to investigate, not us alone. You can go to the magistrate or the court directly and then report such case. So you don't have the right to forcefully eject that tenant. Okay. Another issue also has to do with the obligations in the tenancy agreement. If you sign an agreement, the tenant has its portion to fulfill. You, the landlord, has your portion to fulfill. So if the tenant is not obliged to its obligation, then you have the right to apply for order of eviction. We talk about guilt of conduct, which is of nuisance and annoyance. This is coming out a lot. Okay, the tenants, I heard Regina mentioning it. Nuisance. Okay, nuisance. And you've talked to him or her 1 or 2 times and he doesn't comply. You have the right to apply for the order of eviction. Immoral and illegal purposes. Using the place for all kinds of immoral activities, all kinds of illegal activities. But all this, the judge must convict that person before you can request for order of eviction. Again, if the person is deteriorating your property, and you've spoken with the person for how many times and he doesn't comply, you have the right to recover your possession. We talk about the tenant giving you a notice that I'll quit at this time. Because of the notice, you've also contracted somebody to come and occupy the place when he or she moves. So if he has given you the notice that at the end of this month I'm moving, and then he comes at the end of the month and tells you that things have changed, give me another month or give me another, no, you've already committed yourself somewhere. So because of the written commitment, you can stand on this and then recover your possession.
As the lovely gentleman stated, my name is Natasha Howe. I am the CEO of Aquia Property Management Group USA, as well as Residence Consulting Agency of the USA, and I'm so happy to be here. I'm full of energy, so please feel free to stop me while I'm talking and ask questions. How was everybody's lunch?
Great.
It was great. Yeah, I'm still kind of full too, but we're gonna keep proceeding because I know we have a lot of information to still give you, and I'm looking forward to whatever you learn today, that you take it back to your offices and you start implementing those things immediately. Tell your bosses, if you have a boss, that this is what the rent control guy said, this is what Regina said, this is what Natasha said, and we need to move forward. And if they have any questions, to call us, right?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So the segment of, oh my goodness, I am in the way. The segment of my presentation is going to be talking about best practices for property management. As you all know, I come with the wealth of knowledge from the USA, and what I want to do is be able to share my best practices and what I've learned coming from the USA on how to properly and efficiently manage property, whether that be commercial space, multifamily housing, or single family homes. You guys call those compounds too, so as well, okay? So on this screen, I have a disclaimer here. This presentation offers general information about best practices for property management. This presentation is not to be considered legal advice because I am not an attorney here or in the States, okay? So it's just best practices. As well as for legal advice, we ask that you contact your local attorney or the rent control department, right, of Ghana. So as I stated a moment ago, we're going to be talking about best practices for property management, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper into what our lovely Regina was talking about earlier today. We're going to talk about the client intake process, the pros and cons of that when you're selecting a client for property management services or they're looking out for you to take on their property. We're going to talk about the screening process, what to avoid, what to consider when you're looking for a qualified client or a qualified renter, as well as dealing with tenant and landlord concerns. Some people call them complaints. I like to call them concerns because if you say, what concern do you have? It sounds much better than, what's your complaint? You know, it starts off the conversation kind of ugly, right? So if you say, what is your concern? Automatically the person feels like, oh, they're here to help me because I have a concern, right? Okay. And is that it, sir? I don't know. Oh, and also our person you guys talk about today is handling maintenance requests, okay? I know that's a big one in Ghana. I've WhatsApped a couple people on the phone and I'm like, are you sitting above mold? on your ceiling? Is that mold? In the States we consider mold a serious issue. It's a health hazard, and no one should be inhaling or living or sitting around mold. But I understand all those things are to come here in Ghana. And the next thing is preventive maintenance. Being a property manager, it's all about being proactive and not reactive. A lot of times we can save ourselves from having a heart attack as a property manager by being proactive, coming up with systems, training your staff on how to, I can't move that way because of this, training your staff on how to be more efficient and effective when they're doing their job so that way you can always stay preventive. Holding staff meetings once a week, once a month, quarterly, to discuss what's to come. Sitting down with your clients and talking about, okay, your roofs, they're 25 years old, okay? In 5 years, they have to be replaced. Let's put money aside in your reserves or your escrow accounts to ensure that you have the money that you need to replace those roofs in about 3 years instead of 5 years, because what if leaks occur? That's an additional expense that you do not want to have to occur. And termination of tenancy. We'll talk about that, but I will feedback on Regina as well as the rent control department, because I know things are different here. In the United States, I'm from California. It's definitely tenant friendly, not landlord friendly, but we are very strict with our guidelines and policies. And what I want to do is be able to share those with you today. Maybe you can take those back to your clients, your employers, and let them know some of the things I'm sharing with you so that we can move forward, okay? All right, so some of them I'm going to breeze through because Regina has already spoken about it, but she spoke about earlier today, what is property management, okay? In my personal opinion, it's not even about managing the property. It's about managing the freaking people, okay? That's the biggest hassle. That's the biggest headache, because the buildings don't talk to you. They just age, and they only age because of people that are in the buildings, right? And the wear and tear. But all those things combined, they cost money. So property management is the art and science of managing three resources: the property, the people, and the money, okay? Without the money, you won't have the people, because without the money, you can't take care of the place. Without the people, you won't have the money because they need to take care of the place. Without the property, you won't have the people, you won't get the money. So all three of those are combined equal what is property management to me, to us, okay? It is also an art and a science that requires extensive knowledge, skills, and efficient systems, okay? I was speaking with a lovely gentleman here before lunch, and he was sharing with me just changing one small thing in his business, or I heard you earlier say changing one small thing in his business as far as having software. He realized he was losing how much? $20,000 a month.
Ghana cedis.
Okay, I'm sorry. In Ghana cedis. That is a lot of money because you are acting from an area of not knowing. Some people I found, when they get into property management, as Regina said earlier, they think that it's the glitz and the glam of getting dressed and looking pretty and sitting behind a desk and sometimes only doing administrative. No, you need to know what PVC pipes are. You need to know where the main line is. You need to know how the conduits and the electric lines run. You need to know about plumbing more than the plumber does to make sure that they're doing their job properly. You need to make sure that they invoice you on time, and if not, being proactive and giving them an invoice to sign off on so you can pay their bill, okay? All right. So, qualities of an effective property manager. Regina kind of spoke about that earlier. We're going to go over it a little bit more. So, highly efficient and organized. You will go completely crazy if you do not have systems in place so that way you can ensure that everything gets done in a timely fashion. Every morning when I walk into my office, actually the night before, I create myself what's called a to-do list. To-do list for residents, to-do list for accounting, to-do list for clients, and other. Okay? And then marketing. Usually it's like marketing and checking the bank. Yes. You want to ensure that you are very organized in your day. Now, as a property manager, things will come at your way all the time. You didn't know you had a leak come. Someone needs to pay rent. You know, someone ran into the building. Someone has a noise complaint. Those things will come your way. And with the proper systems in place and the trained staff, you will be able to get those done in a timely fashion. But if those things do come your way on a daily basis, you want to ensure that you go back to your to-do list. Because you cannot, as a property manager, be all over the place. You need to be highly organized. And clients, especially foreigners that are looking to invest, they are looking for individuals that are highly skilled and organized, okay? Next thing is well-trained. Coming to a class like this already gives you a level up above other people. Because between myself and Regina, we are exposing you to systems and information that you probably haven't heard of before. Some you might, all that you haven't. But you can take this information back to when your client comes to you and they're talking about, I want to charge them 1 year's worth of rent. You say, I understand. I understand you're looking because you want to capture all that money in a year because of liability reasons or exposure or unstable work environments or people not sure if they have a job the next day. I understand that. But the rent control department, they are enforcing these laws, and if you get caught, you can be held accountable, penalized, put in jail, lose all your good money, cookie money, can't shop, can't do what you need to do, right? They will understand it, right? And if they don't, then you follow up with giving them the contact information for Mr. Emmanuel, so that way he can educate them more, okay? All right. Take preventive measures, we'll dive in that deeper. And again, I can't scream it enough. Experience is everything. I did a lot of hands-on training when I got into property management. I learned as I went along. At the same time, I did reach out to mentors in the industry that were more seasoned than me. Please consider Regina and I as a resource of property management. We probably have a ton of stories that we can share with you or give you ways to implement better systems if you're having problem with staff, yourself as far as your attitude, your residents, or you need help just overall with the systems that you need to put in place to be a successful property manager, okay? All right, so let's dive right into it. Choosing the right client. Not every client is going to be for you, okay? I know when Regina and I were sharing stories about how I choose my clients, it was a little alarming to her because she's like, but they're gonna go somewhere else. I'm like, so what?